Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this very special event on Zoom. My name is Steve Crist. I am the publisher of Chronicle Chroma. We are the Los Angeles-based imprint of Chronicle Books. Before we get started, we would like to thank our host, Barnes & Noble, for bringing us to you this evening, tonight. We are super excited to celebrate the release of our giant new book. Here it is. You haven't seen it behind me, Spike by Spike Lee. So many people have worked on this book, and we would like to acknowledge everyone at 40 Acres and Chronicle Books that have helped us bring this publication to you tonight. First and foremost, we must thank David Lee. David is just one of the very talented Lee siblings. David has photographed on almost all of Spike's films for many decades, and we are honored to collaborate with David on this special book that contains so much of his photography. And also, we'd like to thank Trey Seals, our designer, who Trey runs a company called Vocal Type in Washington, D.C., where Trey helped us design all the special typography for this book that we used in the packaging. And in the special Barnes & Noble edition that's only good for Barnes & Noble customers are this cool special sticker set that Trey designed for the Spike book for B&N edition. So now we've come to the special event. Our guest tonight is one of the world's greatest filmmakers. Obviously, he has worked in film for many decades and has produced over 35 films, plus films, not including the dozens of short films that he has made and commercials that he's created. You know them as She's Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing, Crooklyn, Malcolm X, Inside Man, Black Klansman, and so many others. We're honored to have him join us here this evening, where he'll be answering some of your questions that you've sent in. We have them here printed out. Please help me welcome our special guest joining us from his offices in Brooklyn, Mr. Spike Lee. Hey, Spike.
How you doing? Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles.
All right. I'm in the People's Republic of Brooklyn, New York.
Absolutely, you are. Spike, first of all, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for all the Barnes & Noble folks that are joining us.
I want to thank you for spearhead. This is really this is your thing, and you brought it to me, and I liked it, and here we are. How, a year ago?
Yeah, before the pandemic, obviously, and that feels like a world of time away.
But that's another planet before.
It's another planet, and you and your team were so kind to us working through all the challenges we had during this time. We scanned so much of David's photographs right here in our offices in LA. We had to do so many things like you had to do at 40 Acres with social distancing. It was a challenge, but
we got it done though.
You got it done. But when we started the book, and I think what you said to me when we first met about it, it's really a challenge. I mean, I took it seriously in the sense that you had so much work, so much content. It was a little overwhelming. You said, let's try to keep it fun. That was one thing that you mentioned to me that I didn't forget that you said to me when we met. And we could start talking about the outside of the book, because I think that's kind of interesting. There are not too many filmmakers that could ever have a book that just has their first name on the cover. You know, who could do that? Not too many people in general. But this,
you could say Marty,
Marty,
Fellini, Federico, Bertolucci, Akira.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not the only one, but
when the reason why we kind of circled around just calling the book Spike, which I think was really interesting, is your filmmaking has spanned so many different types of stories that it was hard to imagine just one photo, one historical photo or something be on the cover. But it's really, you are such a driven, creative person that this seemed to fit. But let's talk about the color that we used on the package.
well, the color is my late mother's favorite color, Jacqueline Shelton Lee.
Yeah.
She passed when I was a freshman at Morehouse College. And you saw Crooklyn, Alfie Woodard played my mother, and Troy Lindo played my father. But the color is fuchsia. That was my mother's favorite color, and that's the color the Louis Vuitton suit I wore in Cannes too, this past man. So fuchsia.
Amazing.
Fuchsia.
Fuchsia, and
Big difference.
We threw that in at the last minute, and we adjusted the color, I should say, from purple to a fuchsia, your mother's favorite cover. I just love it. I think it's just so modern and cool looking with the gold. And
it's a good coffee table, beer table, wine table book.
Well, the kind of book, and we often do this when we're creating books, we're often say, what's the book that I would want, and what's the book that can stand for a long time on your table? Because you don't want anything too trendy, anything that's going to go out of style. But Trey Seals, our designer, Trey's based in Washington.
He did a great job.
Yeah, so Trey
how'd you find him?
Well, I did a lot of research, but when I contacted Trey, I don't know if he's watching tonight, but when I contacted Trey, I did not tell Trey what the job was. I talked to him about type, and I asked him some questions about how he does what he does and comes to it, the types and fonts that he creates. And he seemed like such a lovely guy that by the first meeting, I realized, wow, this guy's really special. And then when we got into it.
He's in DC, right?
He's in DC. And
yeah, I want to meet him. You're
going to meet him at the BAM event, I think, here in Brooklyn. When Trey started, I ultimately had to tell him what the book was, So I said, this book was Spike Lee. So he was super psyched. Trey was a giant fan of yours. But what many folks don't know is that, a lot of books you're using fonts and type that are just sourced commercially, and a lot of designers do this. But Trey took it upon himself to immediately start designing type. I didn't really have to ask him. He started doing it.
What's the name of the type?
It's called Spike. In honor of you, it's called Spike. He took your love-hate rings from Radio Raheem's love-hate rings from Do the Right Thing. And he was so inspired by the one or two different versions of that he decided to create a type that would be as bold and as tough as your love-hate rings. And I think he nailed it. And of course, on the inside of the book, as you go through, we decided to create these chapter breaks, which would enable folks to, because all the movies have different aesthetics and styles. So we were trying to figure out something that could bring it all together. So we chose something to use colored backgrounds, but black type all the way through to just kind of break up the various sections of the book. But again, the goal.
I'm very proud of the book and all the people, include yourself, and a great designer from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital.
Now, of course, we had Trey, which
and also Dave, my brother's photographs.
Yeah, I was just going to get into it. So the one thing that folks might not also know is that 40 Acres is a real collaborative place. You have a lot of great people working for you there, and some of them are your siblings. And there have been a lot of talented Lee siblings that have gotten involved in 40 Acres and the Spike Lee projects. No one any less than David Lee. So David amazingly opened his archives to us for this book. Obviously couldn't have done the book without him. I didn't know the volume of what David had when we got started. So as it started flowing in, I was a little bit scared. I was a little bit overwhelmed. But then I can see that David started taking pictures when you guys were young and in high school, and we were talking about the first cameras he had and everything. But it sounds like you, for folks that don't know, it sounds like you grew up in a very creative household where everybody was doing something creative behind the scenes.
Well, that started with my mother, who taught Black literature. She's the one who was dragging myself and my siblings to movies, the plays, the museums, and my father, the great jazz musician who did the scores for my early films, NYU, all the way up to She's Gonna Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing, and Mo Better Blues. So we just grew up in a very, very, very artistic household where art was championed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were very fortunate because many times when children want to get in the arts, their dreams get crushed by their parents because they just don't know how. They just can't understand how their children can make any money.
Right.
In art. So thank God, that not happened with our parents.
Well, it sounds like with both your parents, they were both creative types, but also your mother was a teacher. And so they took education seriously. Obviously, that's been a big part of your life, not only your educational experience at Morehouse.
David went to got a undergrad degree in photography from Yale, and Jodie Foster and David are in the same class too.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Because he's working on, I think, other things with Jodie too, because I think he mentioned that. But so growing up at that time, and of course, we see the photos, we've seen Crooklyn, which is probably some liberties taken with that story. It's not 100% accurate, but how did you matriculate to, when you got to NYU, how did you decide, how did you know you could do it? Because back then, you were a young student, you were a young guy coming out of college, you had just, lost your mom just a year or two before, and you started at NYU Film. And when I look at those pictures that
NYU Graduate Film School.
Yeah, Graduate Film School, sorry. When you came from Morehouse to NYU, how did you feel like you could get into the industry? How did you feel like you could just make it happen?
Well, I knew it was not going to be me going to LA and working my way up from the mailroom. That was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And the route was going to be independent cinema. And that was great because I didn't get into USC or AFI, which I applied to because I didn't have to get the astronomical score on the GRE. But to get into NYU Graduate Film School, you don't have to take the GRE. Just have an undergrad degree and submit a creative portfolio. But the key thing is that Ernest Dickerson and I, when we came in to NYU the same year, and he went to Howard, I went to Morehouse, so that bond was very strong from the beginning. And Ernest went on to shoot all my films at NYU. My thesis film, Joe's Best Side Barbershop, won a Student Academy Award.
Yeah.
And then Ernest used that film. He showed that film to John Sayles, and he got to shoot Brother from Another Planet. So before we did She's Gonna Have It, he already shot a feature, which was great. So She's Gonna Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, the Malcolm X. And even when Ernest came into film school, he always wanted to be a director, but he was so above everybody else as a DP, he knew that could be a route to get to directing by being a director of photography. So after I knew the day was coming soon, he told me like Malcolm X, that he's out. And his first film was Juice, where he directed a Tupac. And today, Ernest is the top shelf of the episodic TV directors working today.
You know, so many of the folks that you met when you were young, even at graduate school in that time period, in those years,
I got to remember, so I got to say that also Ang Lee was in our class too.
yeah, exactly.
The other Lee.
The other Lee. And one other, what's the other director? There were three of you guys, Ang Lee, you, and there was a third in your graduate class.
Nah, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Jim Jarmusch was 2 years ahead of us.
Oh, Jim Jarmusch, yeah, he was 2 years. So a lot of folks that you met in graduate school, you ended up working with and collaborating with. Some folks you still work with. I mean, that's...
Well, that'd only just be Ernest.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the team. You have Ernest, then Wynn Thomas was the production designer on She's Gotta Have It. Then School Days, Robbie Reed, that's where she began casting for me. Ruth Carter, costume design. So that's where the team really, formed after everybody. Myself, Ernest shooting, Robbie Reed casting, Ruth Carter doing a costume design, and Wynn Thomas production design. I mean, that was the nucleus.
When you, after you graduated and before you made She's Gotta Have It, those were some pretty critical years for you, trying to figure out how that was going to come about to make that film. But in classic Spike Lee style, you made it happen. It was a film that no one was standing around waiting to hand you a film assignment. You stepped up and made that movie happen, which in turn really set you on a path of making the films in the style that you still do today. In a way, you will push forward and start things where other directors might sit back and wait and kind of figure it out. How did that happen?
Well, the biggest one, I really can't, give enough credit to Jim Jarmusch, because not just, when you know somebody that makes it, even though Jim was 2 years ahead of us, we still saw him in school. I was a TA in the equipment rooms. I was checking equipment out the gym. And so when you see somebody that you see them in class, you see them in the hallway, and they make it, that's what makes it like, boom, we could do it too. So I always give a shout out to Jim, my brother, because I wasn't the only one. I mean, we were all inspired by Stranger in Paradise. And so everything he did, I did, as far as, marketing the film, what film, he went to Cannes, I went to Cannes, a whole lot of stuff. So Jim Jarmusch paved the way for not only me, for a lot of us coming out of NYU graduate film school behind him.
So that was a very creative place for you, NYU, and the folks that you met at NYU.
Well, here's the thing though, we're talking about an era before, digital showed up. So we were shooting on film, and myself, I wasn't really expecting teachers, professors. I wanted, they teach me how to like me and stuff, but I just wanted equipment. I knew that was the way I was becoming a filmmaker, by making the films. So I didn't go in there thinking like I'm going to learn how to be a filmmaker from the faculty.
Right.
No disrespect. We all wanted the equipment.
Right. And that was a big thing. Film and processing was a big deal, and having the ability to edit film in the way.
We touched film. We had to load.
Cut it.
We had to edit.
Cut it.
Celluloid. We touched it.
So beyond your early filmmaking skills that you had when you made She's Gotta Have It, you fairly quickly were making this film called Do the Right Thing, which, talk about the people management side of things. You go from making student films to making your own independent feature.
Yeah, there's School Days before Do the Right Thing.
School Days, But I mean, those are stepping stones, but those are some big steps to climb up, because not only you were self-financing and handling all aspects of She's Gotta Have It, but then you step into something, it's going to be a universal feature film, it's going to be a big deal. That's a lot of management and also people management to take on as a director. Did you feel in those steps that those were natural stepping blocks going from student film to?
But you keep skipping She's Gonna Have It. I mean, you keep
Sorry. Yeah.
skipping School Days. So
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it was all a buildup.
Yeah.
Film school, She's Gonna Have It, School Days. They were a buildup for me to do that film, and Do the Right Thing was the first film I felt comfortable directing actors.
Right.
Because in film school, you really, your technical expertise is way more developed than working with actors.
Right.
So that took me three feature films for me to get to that comfort level.
One of the reasons why we wanted to include some of your early films in the book is not only because of David's great photography, which there's so much of it. There's you and Ernest working on set. It also, you could really see the progression of how you were working suddenly on bigger and bigger shows and bigger things.
My grandmother always said, you got to crawl before you can walk. So, I think those they're wise words for me.
Right.
That I mean, it's this stuff is hard, and it's a craft, and the more you do it, the better you can get. You're at your craft, but also, again, it wasn't just me. The team. I'm directing, Ernest is shooting, Win Thomas production design. Oh, Barry Brown, I forgot Barry. Barry Brown is editing, Win Thomas production design, Robbie recasting, my father doing the music, David Lee is a unit photographer. That was a very, very tight-knit group, and we were all basically the same age and wanted to make our way in this industry, which is set up not for us to succeed.
Yeah, there's so many points with David's photos and just the trajectory of your films that we wanted to put in as many images from the early days as we could, but of course you've done so many films, it was hard to fit all of your work into one book. We had to stop at some point because this was going to become like a 4-hour movie. It was going to be amazing.
You ever see that big Muhammad Ali book from Tashin?
Don't say those words. We'll bleep that out.
Yeah, understand that scope that came with it.
You're still going, so there might be a thicker and thicker spike book that comes out. We're going to add pages to the back. It's amazing to walk through all these photographs. I think people forget how many films that you actually made, and you have made more than so many other directors. What folks don't know is you're often working or balancing one or two projects at one time, but you're also shooting a film almost every year, really, is how you work on a cycle, and that's very prolific. We have some technical, I looked at the questions that some folks have submitted, and we have all of our folks joining us from Barnes Noble. I'm going to pick out a couple. Some are technical and some are otherwise here. Someone asked, Eunice Cohen from Pomona, California asks, how did you come up with your now famous double dolly floating shot? How did you come up with that shot?
Well, number one, I did not invent that shot. That shot has been used way before I did. It was during Mo Better Blues, and Ernest and I there's a shot where Giant had to go down the block, so we just did it. But it came to a point where Ernest and I said, you know what? We're out of film school. We have to keep showing off. If we use the shot, it has to be motivated.
Yeah. So you had to figure out exactly where to put it and how to use it for.
Let me give you an example. When we were doing Malcolm X, the late great Dr. Betty Shabazz told me that she felt Malcolm knew he was going to be assassinated that Sunday afternoon at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem. And so when she told me that, I began to think of what could we do to make the audience realize his head is his where his head is at. And that's where I use the double dolly shot.
Right. And for those that don't know, we just a few weeks ago, the Academy Museum here in Los Angeles just opened. They screened a 70 millimeter print of Malcolm X, the only one in existence. And I think that you own. That was amazing to see in an amazing theater.
Denzel was there too
for the beginning. Mr. Denzel Washington
and Angela Bassett.
But I can tell you that when that film started and it began, to see that film, Malcolm X on a large screen, is completely different effect to see it in a theater at that level. And I still was dead silent. My wife Gloria and I, we were dead silent when the credits rolled. We were just like mouths open, dead silent. Even after 3 hours, I was like, that film must have been was that the most difficult film you've ever made? I mean, in terms of
She's Gonna Have It was up there.
No, Malcolm X was an epic film. It a cast of thousands. You were like all over the world shooting it in various places.
Well, Denzel and I, as I said that night, as I kidded Denzel, you know, we would greet each other every day in the set, like, did you bring your passport? Just in case we had to get out of the country under the cover of darkness.
You couldn't even go back to the hotel. You just had to go straight to the airport.
There was a lot of pressure on making the film.
For folks that haven't seen that movie recently or haven't seen it ever, it's a fantastic film to revisit. It'll go down in history. It already has as one of the most amazing films you've ever made. But I looked at it from a complexity standpoint. I thought, wow, this thing has so many working parts. It's so deep, so layered, so complex.
And we got one of the greatest performances ever.
You know, that was the thing. Denzel Washington's performance in that was amazing. That was just one for the record books. We have a few more questions we're going to try to touch on and see if there's something in this list of questions that we might be able to add. So Danette Kelly from I think it means Staten Island, New York, asks, right now, after all these films, what motivates you and what's your next dream project to direct? Is there another?
Well, my dream project for many years has been to do the Joe Louis biography. So hopefully I get to do that. And what keeps me going is very simple. I love what I'm doing. It can't get more basically that. And when you love what you're doing, it's not work. You know?
Well, you're famous for being up early, in the office early, early call times. Even when I'm visiting, you were there. You're there before anyone. You're often there after anybody. So you're working a long day. Like Michael Jordan would be always the first one in and the last one to leave. So you definitely love.
But it's not. I mean, I'm glad you gave the example of Michael, but any great artist, they're doing what they love.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing, because the majority of people on this earth, I say this all the time, but the majority of people on this earth go to their grave having worked at a job they hated. So when you can make a living doing what you love, that's a W.
Yeah.
That's not taking an L. That's a win.
Most people don't get that gift, but also you've embraced it and pushed harder and deeper into it with all your, all the efforts show it's paid off in terms of the films. There are a couple other questions we have on the list. There are a few things that I want to point out. One thing's kind of interesting. I thought that was interesting. We had to put the quote in. When Barack Obama and Michelle Obama went on their very first date.
Very first date.
They went out. They were going to go out. Barack Obama thinks he's going to take her to some event. Where did he take her that night? Where did he take her on the first date?
They went to see Do the Right Thing.
Now, that's just such an amazing moment to think that that young couple went out to see Do the Right Thing.
I know, and that was the right move.
He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy.
That was the right move.
He was smart. That's a great story from the book.
That's why I didn't get disinvited for the party in Martha's Vineyard this summer. Like a whole lot of people that make the cut.
Yeah, exactly. A few people got left off the list, but yeah,
they were on the list, but they got cut from the list.
Yeah. Well, I'm
in there.
You brought them together. You helped bring them together. So, one last question we have. I think we have a few minutes left. It's from Janine Irons in South Orange, New Jersey. We got 15 minutes left. What advice do you give to young filmmakers these days? You get approached. You teach at NYU Film Graduate Studies, tenured professor, creative director of NYU Tisch Film. How do you advise young people? Because you've really given back. That's another unique part of your background, is that you do that. You participate in teaching, which not everyone does. What advice do you give young filmmakers today, 2022?
Today is not like when I went to school. People can make a movie with this. People can make a movie with edit on their laptops. So the technology has brought, you might say, a democracy to filmmaking. And you really have no excuse. Now, I'm not saying you go out and try to make a 3-hour film, but just start doing shorts. Learn how to tell a story and do it. You have a phone, you got a laptop. Yeah. Get a gang, get your people together, people with, similar interests, and go out and do the work.
And because the equipment and the technology has simplified things in so many ways, it really comes down to the story and actually the activity of making it happen. You've got to go out and participate in the process, right?
You got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
When you're at NYU Film and you're dealing with graduate students, maybe they're making a thesis film. How do you advise them? Do you kind of stand back a little bit, let them kind of make their own mistakes?
I keep 100. I tell them, what I feel. So, but I'm very careful with criticism because I don't want to crush anybody's spirit. So I tell them from the beginning, there might be some criticism, but it comes from a place of love, because I want everybody to succeed. And I hope that they want me to be, when I have my, advisements, I teach a class, everybody's together, but then after that, the advisement is broken down, half an hour slots. So that's just one-on-one. And students, they really appreciate them honest with them, even they don't even, and also a lot of times I always say is, look, that's my opinion. You could take, and do what you want, but you sign up for the class, you sign up for advisement, and this is what I think.
Yeah. Does the teaching, your inspiration to teach, especially at this point in your career, does that trace back to your mom being a teacher?
Oh yes, my grandmother. I come from a long line of educators, so that's not a secret, And I think they don't get teachers. I'm not talking about myself, but teachers do not get paid enough. I mean, it's criminal. The low wages teachers make, And despite that, they do that because they love teaching and they want to help young people. They want to help their students. They want to educate their students. They want to inspire. I bet if you did a survey of successful people, they would name one person or more, a teacher that made a great difference in their life.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that also to have 30 minutes with you, if you're a young filmmaker in a master's program, you're doing something that very few filmmakers of your level do, which is give back at that level. So that's a great gift that you're giving.
But NYU, I mean, D. Reeves, a student of mine, last year, Shaka, last year, Chloe. I mean, so NYU, we're kicking ass, the graduate film school.
Yeah, you are, absolutely. Well, that's fantastic that you give that back, because that's a big part of your movies. Also, is you bring people in. You know, we watched, for many folks, I don't know how many people online have seen this right now on our live stream, but your HBO 9/11 series, the 4-episode piece. One thing that we took away from that, for those that don't know, that just started streaming just a few months ago. It's really a story about New York.
It's on HBO Max now.
Yeah, HBO Max.
8 hours.
8 hours. Well, we watched all 8 hours of it. But I thought one of the most generous parts about that film, it's also, you covered very difficult subject matters. You're discussing 9/11, the destruction of the Twin Towers. You're discussing COVID and the pandemic, the difficult moments that New York City has endured. But you being a New Yorker, you were the right guy to do that. I can't imagine any other filmmaker doing that. Not only did you bring in the right people to be interviewed, some, all different kinds of points of views, but also really people who were affected by what happened in New York on the street. That was so critical. Because you've acted in your movies, and you have, when you do a documentary, sometimes you're out of the way, sometimes you're in it. How do you know how much of yourself to put in? I mean, that one.
Well, this one, I mean, I'm not in my documentaries.
Yeah.
But this one, I've done many. But this one, I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even in New York at 9/11. I was in LA.
That's right.
I was here all during the pandemic, and I'm a New Yorker, so this is it was very personal. That's the only way I could, the best answer I give you is very personal.
Yeah. Do you feel that even, that your films in general, whether they're fictional films or documentaries, do you feel that that's what draws you to that? There's something about either the character in a fiction film or in a documentary, you have a sensitivity to that subject or interest. Is that what draws you to do a film, like to?
It's always a story. I mean, it's just basic. What story interests me? What story do I want to tell? Mm. What's new in this story that people will say, "Oh shit, I didn't know that." I never heard about the maritime exodus.
Yeah,
like half a million people got off the tip of Lower Manhattan by boats. I did not know that.
There's so much going on, so much. That I've stood right there at VZ Street, all that area right there in Lower Manhattan, just trying to comprehend the scale of that thing that happened there, and also trying
like we said in the film, more than Dunkirk, World War II.
Yeah. That for those who haven't seen that series, the 4-series piece, it's really worth seeing. You should check it out on HBO Max. We took from the very beginning of the book all the way through to the end of the book. We really went up to the very last documentary you did. So we really tried to, we didn't cover every film you made, but we covered a lot of it. What do you think when you have all of these films, they kind of click and connect together? Do you see anything looking backwards at your own work? I think this would be my last question for you tonight. Do you see anything looking back at your 35 plus films and say, I can kind of see the young Spike to the Spike of today. I kind of see how all this clicked together. Like you didn't know it going forward, but do you see it looking back? Like how it all got put together and became this body of work?
A lot of work, a lot of hard work. And again, I had great filmmakers to work with. I'm not 100% that auteur theory, but I've worked with great people. And if you don't surround yourself with great people, like you be the quarterback on a team, but if you don't have an offensive line and the running backs and no wide receivers, you're out there butt naked.
Right.
You gotta have, it's a team effort. It's a team effort.
The end papers of the book are the sheets that you see when you first open a book. And one of the reasons why we created the end papers to look the way they do, the front and back of the book, they really have pictures of folks in your life, not necessarily everyone, a lot of pictures of your family, a lot of pictures of your friends. You clearly are, everyone can see it. I kind of I love that setup for the book because I wanted people to see what a people person you are, because that's really clear from the beginning of the book. And to me, it shows because these films are complex and deep stories, and you're working with lots of people and collaborators on the set. So you're really able to really pull this off. But as you say, it's a team effort, because when I look at these shots of all the people that are on and in your crews and working on your films, young people. Now.
What movie is that? That photo?
I believe that was
He Got Game?
He Got Game. That was He Got Game. Yeah. Yeah. You've influenced a lot of young filmmakers. Do you think it's easier nowadays for filmmakers that you have that to get into the industry in general? There's a lot of films being made, there's a lot of content being made, if you will, for TV industry.
Let me answer the question like this. People of color, definitely there's more films being made, produced, written by people of color. Women too. So there has been involvement over the years since I started, but in no way, shape, or form have we reached true equality. But everything, it's a struggle. So it's day by day, and just got to keep whacking.
Keep whacking. Well, this has been such an honor for us to produce this book. I was personally honored that you said yes and allowed us to do it. Look at that, from LA to Brooklyn. Here it is.
Also, again, this is my mother's favorite color, fuchsia. So this is really a tribute for mother too. Jackie Shelton Lee.
All right. Well, we are so honored and thankful for you to join us tonight. I'm going to let our Barnes & Noble viewers know that a little later tonight, you're going to be on CNN, Don Lemon's show. You and your brother David, I think,
yeah,
on there in just a little while. So for our viewers on screen, if you want to check out Don Lemon on CNN tonight, you might see Spike and David talking about the book a little bit more. Spike, we're up against our time. We got just a minute or two left, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you. And let's we got to come up with another book.
I know. I'm going to take a short vacation first.
Yeah, I'm not saying right now, but down the line.
There's another one. There's another great one coming
More than
soon.
one. All
Okay.
right. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Barnes & Noble. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Spike Lee, and everybody who worked on
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone who's bought a book. I really appreciate it. You know, I don't take this for granted. And a lot of yous, you know, thank you for sticking with me through thick and thin. Peace and love.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Avita Singh. Arrivederci. All right, later.
Thank you, Spike.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.